Very good afternoon, all the distinguished and distinguished all the speakers, all the listeners, and all other members of Vyapar Jagat. I really thank Praveen to organize this panel discussion of healthcare industry for the very first time in this convection award. And we really feel happy and privileged to discuss a very important topics on healthcare challenges. Likewise, so I'll introduce first. I'll just introduce our panel member, Dr. Bharat Gadvi. I know Dr. Gadvi since many years. I worked under him. I have learned so many things. I mean, by the virtue of just being there with him. He is regional head of HCG Group, and at present actively working on AHNA as a president. And we all aware about all the activities of AHNA on various platforms. So he's taking leadership from the Gujarat level, and that is a really uploaded efforts. I would really congratulate sir for this all these big tasks for Gujarat hospitals. Secondly, I'll announce Mr. Neeraj Lal. He's CEO with Apollo Hospitals. Previously, had worked with Rainbow Children Hospital Medicover Group in South India. Before that, he was there with Shelby Hospital. Now, recently, he has joined Apollo and working at the executive leadership role. He is a national figure, and people know about him everywhere. He's there on many platforms. So I would not much extend the introduction part. We have Mr. Rajesh Chandwani from IIM Ahmedabad. He's the head for Center of Management in Healthcare. So, sir, I welcome you on this particular topic. Then we have Dr. Uma, madam. So I think she is. They'll have to unmute, madam.
Yeah,
I just request. Yeah, hello. Very good afternoon. I just request you to say a few lines because I am also not much aware about your background. So if you can introduce yourself.
So I've been around in the healthcare industry for nearly now 30 plus years. And I'm a neurosurgeon, and then after that trained administrator. I've been senior management positions for many organizations, including Fortis, and as a CEO for Global Hospital as well as for Asia Hospital, and was advisor to some of the governments in Africa on strategy and advising. Now I'm back in India. I just finished commissioning a 500-bed hospital, and I also chair the Digital Health India Association. So that's
right. So thank you so much, and I think let's have the role balling. I'll just quickly tell you about the background of what we are going to discuss today, because in 2020 and 2021 was the years of challenge and tragedies. Everyone knows about it, but also provides a thought-provoking demonstration of the value of research as well as the science. And we are now seeing the light at the end of the COVID-19 tunnel, but that is not the scene yet with the Omicron variant. So pandemic has been really a catalyst of the change, whether it's a digitalized healthcare system, improved health delivery model with the virtual engagements on so many platforms, new disruptive business models, which has come into the surface now with the innovation and innovative collaborations. And this world of healthcare will never be the same. That is what we look forward to. And of course, with that, we are looking forward for the healthier and safe and more equitable 2022 as we are at the end of 2021. So I have just gathered few points just to discuss on these few minutes what we have. My question, as Mr. Neeraj requested that he has to go early, let us hear from his own experience and from his mind as to what he thinks on major challenges of all healthcare managers and all healthcare leaders we'll face in 2022 and beyond, because we are looking at the decade now. So over to you, Mr. Neeraj.
Thank you very much, Neha. And thank you, Dr. Praveen, for having me on this stage. I think too much of COVID seminars, what hospitals are doing, what they are not doing. I think best part is to move forward. COVID is here to stay for small time, big time. So some of the things which hospital have done, I'll give you my experiences in Bangalore as well as Hyderabad, because I just joined Apollo to what we have done in these two hospitals. And that's the future now. I think everybody has to think about the future, because pandemic have exposed healthcare in a big way. We are struggling for small things. I'll give you a small example like punch in and punch out. So what we have done, we have installed AI-based cameras for the employees, for the doctors, and for our patients. Say, for example, and we are capturing 5 modes. We are talking about happy mode, sad mode, not very happy, and irritated. So we have installed these cameras in our OPD centers. So whenever any patient is not happy or feeling very bad, so our customer care manager used to see on the AI cameras and go proactively close to the patient and say, sir, I understand you're not very happy. So can you let me know how can I help you? And patient is amazed. How do you know? So this is a power of AI. I think AI, machine learning is here to stay in healthcare for a long time. Better we take this technology and use in the patient care. Similarly, whenever a doctor enter a hospital, his happiness index is 85%. And while he is going out, his happiness index has gone down to 40. So HR manager or a CEO of the hospital or a medical head will call him up. Hey, doctor, why your happiness index is going down? Can we do something? Why you're too much of pressure, too much of work? So I think we have to use this technologies in healthcare. Gone are the days I came to know something known as paperless hospital. I think if you see still hospitals are coming, patients are coming with a bag, with so many reports are there. So I think digitization can change the way the healthcare works. And thanks to the government of India, this policy is coming up. So whether you are a group of hospital or you are a standalone hospital, if you got a unique healthcare ID like a Aadhaar or something, you can view the patient reports and you can take a call accordingly. So few of the things which we have attempted to do in the healthcare, say for example, OPD. Why OPD should be a part of a hospital main complex. In Hyderabad, while my journey in Medicover, we have carved out the OPD, a 40,000 area away from the hospital. And on the main road, we have created a OPD center where we have 72 consultation rooms and a health and wellness lounge. There we see patient get afraid when they come to the hospital. ICU is there, ward is there. So what we have done, 300 meters away from the hospital, patient come in a OPD, show to our doctors, get the blood investigation done. And whenever they require an indoor admission, a battery operated cart is available there. Sit in that car, go inside the hospital, which is on a different side, and take the admission. So therefore, these are the few things which we have attempted in this COVID times to manage the COVID. And we are grossly using this technology. Like our virtual consultation is less than 5% pre-COVID. Now it is 47%. So I think hospital have to use this technology to reach to the patient care, and ultimately we can benefit many patients at the same time.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Sir, Dr. Gadhvi, sir, what are your thoughts on the challenges going ahead, like in 2022 and beyond? I mean, if we talk specific about Ahmedabad and Gujarat, because you hit Gujarat.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for giving me this opportunity. And Neha, thanks for anchoring this. Welcome, Neeraj and Dr. Uma. We have not been talking to each other, but have been knowing each other since long. Rajesh and I have been
since 30 years, almost.
Yeah. So about the challenges in the coming years, the first one is we already have learned, and we have to further learn how to live with this virus. It's not going to go away so soon. There are going to be mutations. There may be hybrids. We don't know how infectious they are going to be, how lethal they are going to be. So we'll have to continue learning. We'll have to understand that now the geographies are not going to affect the virus spread, because we are aware that how the movements occur, when will the patient come from, where he will come from. Stopping flights is not going to be
solution
in reducing the spread. All these things we'll have to learn. We'll have to work together as one world and ensure that this is not the question only affecting India or affecting US or UK. We'll have to collaborate at various fronts. WHO has not been very successful for various reasons, but they will have to evolve. They will have to really take everybody together in this fight. And as soon as something new comes up, some study or some mutation or a lineage of that virus comes, that information has to spread very quickly, very fast. Irrespective of anything, we'll have to learn to live with mask. Physical distancing, we may do away with it, may not be feasible also practically, but wearing mask will be like 2022. I don't see any respite from wearing mask. We'll have to continue wearing mask. And for a country like India, where we have seen that there are a lot of respiratory tract infections, tuberculosis and other diseases, these all can be reduced through wearing mask. Now it has become a norm in most of the Southeast Asian countries. If you look at any of the Southeast Asian countries, they've been wearing masks since many years, since they had the H1N1 and they had other infections. We also have to learn. We need to inculcate this behavior in our own countrymen. People are still not taking that seriously. But by wearing mask, you are going to cut down any kind of spread to a huge extent. So these are the things which we will have to do in the years. We have to understand that it's not going to go away. Pandemic is not going to stop in 2022. It will go on till a mutation happens, which will become non-infective or non-lethal, and the virus dies down. But I don't see that at least in 2022.
Okay. So I think one of the important points which you just highlighted, that is going to be there. We have to learn to be together. And I think COVID appropriate protocols to be imbibed in our life going forward till we completely get out of it. So that's something which is going to be there. Thank you for such a big message to all the members and all the participants. Another question I asked Madam Uma, that we have talked about telehealth all around COVID since last 2 years. So it is being said that telehealth is not going to be a solution. This is going to be a permanent service. That is what the people are looking at with the changing scenario, of course, with all digitalization which is happening globally. What are your thoughts on this? Telehealth becoming a service. You'll have to unmute. Yeah,
I do agree with the fact that telemedicine is here to stay, and it is going to be one of the services that we provide. See, it's been there in the country for the last 20 years, but it was really when COVID happened and we realized that all along what we thought we had everything in healthcare under control, we realized that we were so fragmented and we were so disorganized and we were so much in our silos that the only thing that could help us was technology, which we had been ignoring for the last 20 years.
Sure.
And thankfully, the government also woke up and immediately they made the guidelines so that it could be regulated. In my view, as we go digital, and we know, I mean, in the last 2 years, it has been proven beyond doubt that digitization is the only way forward to undo the damage that we had done to our own healthcare system.
Yeah.
Which in a way, it was a fragmented healthcare system. We were all working in silos. We never cooperated. So technology was the savior in times of COVID, but technology has also opened our eyes to know that if we have to move forward to do meaningful healthcare to the community, then we have to use digital technology. And telemedicine will be to the digital health infrastructure, which will become the core. It has the same role as, I would say, an ASHA worker and a PHC have in the brick and mortar system.
Yeah.
The first point of data collection for every citizen would be through telemedicine. So what we will essentially be doing is physical will always stay. The physical infrastructure is required for specialty care, super specialty care, in hospital sickness care. But for wellness and for routine, like small time health care, which is like 60 to 70% of the disease burden, that will be handled through telemedicine. And this will form the basis on which you have the other HISs and the EMRs that will sit on it and amplify the healthcare for the people. And eventually it will be personal health records for people, and each patient will have their own data with themselves. And telemedicine therefore has to be the basic building block. So it is not just a time pass thing that we have used for consultation during COVID. So it should not be looked at as a consultation mode. It will become the primary source of data. Yeah? So that's what I needed to say. Over to you.
Thank you for your wonderful thoughts on data collection and the model which you have just spoke about, the ASHA worker, and how the data collection from the resource, I mean from the sourcing itself, I mean from the registry of the patient and Aadhaar and other things. I think that is going to be a game changer in India when the government supporting this digital healthcare registry is happening. That project is already taken by Prime Minister. Going forward and moving forward from this data, I request Dr. Rajesh to give his insights. First of all, please accept my congratulations. He has just released one movie and a movie on COVID warriors, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Chandwani.
No, it was not on COVID warriors.
Okay.
It was on Kama Hospital, who actually faced the terrorists before they went to
Yeah. So some
it's about their bravery.
Yeah. So please accept our congratulations. Sir, what are your thoughts? How the data collection and this whole big agenda is going to be sorted in India and from the management and academic point of view?
Yeah, so thank you so much, Dr. Neha and Vyapar Jagat, and great to see all of you here. So I have been working on telemedicine since my dissertation and last 10-15 years, and वो चलता ही नहीं था, है ना, कि people used to just use it as a demo piece कि वो वहाँ है telemedicine and see we have got telemedicine, but nobody used to consult. In fact, one organization in Hyderabad closed down while I was doing my dissertation. मेरा data collection आधा रह गया. So that was the status. And what happened in COVID was we used to say in college, Bharat Gadvi sir को पता होगा, मजबूरी का नाम dash dash एक होता है. So that was the case where it came up that telemedicine is the only way you can go and consult the doctor, because doctor and patient both are afraid to see face to face each other. And I think that was the turning point, as Uma madam was also saying, that it made us comfortable with the technology which we didn't acknowledge till 20 years. But that was the only good thing which we could see that COVID can bring. I think technology adoption is a very, very, very complicated thing. And I have been working with many organizations on technology adoption in healthcare. And it is from the technician to the data collector to ASHA workers to doctors to administrators. It is a big thing, big hurdle actually. And most enthusiastic people are people sitting in administration, and they are the positive extreme of enthusiasm. The negative extreme of the enthusiasm is the ground staff, and including doctors. So that is where the gap needs to be bridged if we want to see the fruits of digital health or digital technology in healthcare. I think this bridging of human technology interface, how it can be bridged, means COVID has brought doctors and patients on technology. Otherwise, for 20 years, we were not there. So how the things will move forward will depend upon many things will depend upon how adoption takes place in healthcare, especially ground staff, especially the rural areas, the villages, the ASHA workers, the other hospital staff.
I think a lot of things are required and a lot of efforts have to put in, as you said, the breaching the gap between the ground level staff to the management. But I always wonder, when we have the EMR implementation, let's say at my hospital, we always talk to doctor, when you use the smartphone, I think it is as simple as that. Even our attendant also uses a smartphone. They are all there in all the platforms. Why don't they just adopt this technology as just for ease of their own work? So that is that kind of strategy I'm sharing that we have tried to adopt it, and we to some extent we have achieved. But yes, if you talk about the rural India, there are many things yet to be thought of and yet to be done. So very nicely conducted, and given all the inputs by all of you. Moving forward, again, I request Mr. Lal, let us move to next topic. We have heard a lot of things on technology and the telehealth as well as the challenges. What is your thought that how the social media advertising landscape will continue to evolve, and how the actually healthcare marketing trends would be matter in your 2020-22 and beyond, of course?
See, I'll always give with examples like in Medicover, 6 months, 15 crore. That was a target to reach to the people. So we have aggressively used social media to reach to 15 crore people. What we did, we have created 250 social influencer agents, the people who got a following of more than 50,000. We have enrolled those celebrities, young people, old people into the various fields. And we have requested them to visit the hospitals and promote healthcare in their own way, right from the OTs, from the OPD. Some of the patients are, they've been treated by our consultants. And for this, we have got the award also. I think social media have two edges, good and bad. So how to use social media in your favor in like, say, for example, these days, whenever you do anything and whenever you talk to anybody whom you are interviewing, they say, sir, I have seen you on social media. You have done this, you have done this. So people have gone to that level. But one thing, social media, which they are coming into the privacy of the people. I'll give you examples. See, now hospital have large number of sources which generate enormous amount of data daily, vaccination data, your clinical data, OP and IP, and software application like HIMS and supply chain. And even department has created own dashboards. So what is happening? This data is not talking to each other. Say, for example, we got a call centers. Call center are lead generated through various platforms, phone numbers, from social media, from the websites and all. So there is a platform which is created. Now, most of the startups are there in Hyderabad and Bangalore. They used to come and they integrate all these leads so that you can generate these leads in your favor for a potential business. Say, for example, in COVID time, Mr. Rajesh Chandwani telling telemedicine was not happening. And now because of COVID, it acted an enzyme and telemedicine has reached from 5% penetration to 47%, for example, in my hospital. So similarly, these technology also is happening, like software. I'm giving example of mFine. mFine is a platform which integrate all the doctors for a virtual consultation. So doctor can consult a patient while on the move. So I think technology and digital penetration has, is going in a long way. People have to adapt technology and this digitally. Now, I think I have not seen an ad in the print media or something like this. People are making use of social media. People are using this digital technology for business and reaching to n number of patients. So I think the first things first, if hospital use this social media for the business as well as for the patient care. Say, for example, whenever a patient is going for a CT scan, so a video is on where sometimes they're talking about CT scan is a so many minutes procedure. So and so person will do your procedure. What are the merits? What are the demerits? So a patient is aware. Most of the time, patient went inside the hospital, he or she is confused what I am doing. So I think thanks to COVID, most of the things people are making use. Otherwise, for a conferences and platform, you need to pack your bags, take a flight and come by the evening. And thanks to this COVID and digital, we are talking to each other and seeing each other. So digital transformation is happening in a big way in healthcare, but it is not happening in a uniform and a structured way. Like data is not talking to each other. So I think some platforms are there. Home healthcare is a new concept which is started. So these are the things which, I want to say about digital technology, use of this technology for the promotion of healthcare and for the business of healthcare. That's from me, Neha.
Thank you. Thank you so very much for sharing wonderful examples being practiced at many good hospitals. Request to Dr. Gadhvi, sir. Dr. Bharat Gadhvi, sir. Yes, sir. Taking these thoughts forward, hospital will still continue, and if they are still continuing to, consolidate and running as a business. So if we talk about Gujarat Healthcare, let us say, how these big time, small time hospital or mid-sized hospitals are, continuing collaborating as well as, consolidating themselves, whether it's a doctoral model or is any entrepreneur is running the hospital. How does that particular function is evolving in Gujarat?
So specifically during COVID, what we have seen that there are, because there was shortage of beds, etc. Hospital themselves also opened up various satellite centers and ensured that the beds availability was not an issue. If you look at the second wave, when most states or most cities had problems related to beds, compared to that, Ahmedabad faced much lesser difficulties because we kept on increasing the beds as per the requirement.
Right.
And we are constantly collaborating with the government. What is the requirement? So March end, we had around 3,000 beds reserved for COVID in private sector. That was increased to almost 6,500 within 15 days.
Oh.
That's how we were able to really work together and ensure that every patient who required a bed was provided. Yes, they may not have been able to get the bed in the hospital they wanted, but they were not denied of a bed. So that was one of the reasons of having lesser number of issues with the bed availability in Ahmedabad. In relation to the evolving models, still it is the same model. People are continuing with the doctor-led hospital model, but more non-medical people are also joining the bandwagon. They are considering that COVID is going to be there, considering that they have seen a lot of patient inflow during those times. They have realized the need for hospitals, and now more entrepreneurs are coming up with newer hospital projects, and we are seeing that in next few months or years we will come across various
new ventures.
New ventures coming together.
So, sir, as I understand, in year 2022, because we are just moving into that year, so same, the same arrangements of the bed. If that Omicron spread out is there, if the Omicron is going to be spreaded like the COVID-19 in year 2021, and then a huge shortage of oxygen, huge shortage of beds, how ANA is perceiving to it? How ANA is already, driving this particular challenge?
So we all have a COVID steering committee. We are looking at what kind of facilities are available. And during the COVID peak, when we faced this oxygen crisis, we all came together. We had a unique way of ensuring that everybody had adequate oxygen. So we collected from those non-COVID treating hospitals, we collected cylinders, oxygen cylinders. Because at that time, availability of cylinders itself was a big task, a big challenge. Plus, we got some from the other places. And we had an oxygen bank of almost 150 cylinders at our disposal, which was, I think, unique in the country. No private hospital organization had managed this kind of oxygen bank. So we quickly, naturally with the government help, we got the license for the storage quickly. And we got help from Blind People Association. They gave us the premises and we had vehicles at our disposal. But we came together and ensured that we had an oxygen bank. So at night, whenever hospitals had shortage issues, this bank was proven to be very helpful.
Okay. So I think, yes, I was also part of that and could witness a lot of efforts have been taken to ANA. We really congratulate you, sir, for taking this big case challenge of COVID on ANA, and ANA actually accelerated everyone. I must tell Dr. Gharbi has been very, very active in all the common issues of all the hospitals in Ahmedabad and Gujarat. And I really wish that this chapter could actually spread across India, and then very big association and all the healthcare providers are that it is that now ANA and whatever association is there to take care of us. Because I think government is also very, very far as understanding the issues of the healthcare. So we have a huge gap wherein ANA is providing, I would say the staircase to reach the government and, making change in India. That is what I want to submit here. Sure. Okay, thank you so very much. To Madam Uma, Dr. Noman Abiyar, I mean, with this COVID change, you have worked with so many hospitals at the leadership in India and outside India. What is the main difference or your views on patient experience and patient expectation? So I would like you to just narrate your experience before COVID and post COVID, what we are looking at.
So when we had the first wave, no one knew anything about what had hit us, right? So the animal that we were dealing with was unknown to everyone. Everybody was afraid. So initially there was fear and also social stigma because there was isolation and quarantine, and everybody thought like, you just become a pariah, and people were not coming forward. Even if they had fever and all that, like they would not come forward to testing because kahin unko isolate na karte hain, relatives ko isolate karte hain, all of that stuff happened. Then we found that over a period of 3 months or so, when people had a little bit of knowledge, by the time the second wave came, we knew far more because the scientific advances that have happened over for research in this disease and for developing vaccine and everything, it's been phenomenal. It has never, it is unprecedented in the history of medicine to have vaccines, so many of them develop within 1 year of outbreak of a disease. So we have to really be very thankful that we have so much of scientific advancement at our disposal. And by the time second wave happened, people were not afraid anymore. One, there was this whole sense of comfort. Yes, there is a vaccine. Although they had not taken a vaccine available, it was almost to that level that people stopped wearing masks and all that. So there was an attitude, a behavioral attitude where people had, I would call it a fatigue of some kind, wearing masks, social distancing, policing, all of that stuff. So they were fed up. So they stopped wearing masks. And therefore, the second wave happened. If had the behavior continued properly, we had COVID appropriate behavior been more pronounced, we would not have hit the second wave like we did. So I think a lot of us and our behavior is to blame for that. And the euphoria that the vaccine is there again, made people quite lax in their disciplined behavior. However, now it is quite all right to, ask for RT-PCR, people themselves come forward. They, even if the slightest of suspicion of any symptom, or even if the relatives have it, found positive, they'll come forward to testing. There is a fear when, mutations happen. But I think what people have to know, virus is a virus. It will always mutate. What is a big deal? We need to be prepared for that. Not every mutant will respond to the vaccine that we already have.
Fine.
However, there are attempts, and science is so, well advanced that I am sure we will have vaccines which will, sort of act against mutants. Even if not, the mutations that you see are less lethal than the ones before. If you see the character in which the virus is mutate, because there is a natural tendency, virus also has to survive, right? So so mutation is not something that people should, just throw their hands up and say, oh my God, one more mutation. So what? You have to learn to deal with it. And the one thing that is going to help all of us is our behavior. I don't think that we are as yet ready to give up masks. We should not. Masking and social distancing is the only thing that is going to ensure that we can work like what we were working before. We can go out, we can, do everything that we're doing. And, and once you have your 2 doses of the vaccine, then whether booster is required or not required, these are all scientific discussions that will happen, appropriate guidelines will be given. We are not yet there. So I think we need to not have fear. We have that much of knowledge today to understand that fear should not be there. We should not be all into this rumor mongering and, WhatsApp university gossip sessions, being forwarded as if like Omicron is, put the stop to like, why? Omicron is not such a deadly virus. Why did we do lockdowns? They're not necessary. It's not necessary. Life has to go on as normal. So we need to learn to live with this virus. What Bharat had told earlier, we need to learn to modify our behavior, to learn to live with this new disease. This disease is not going to get eradicated. Right. This will get the status of another flu. Once this gets the status of another flu, be ready. There will be some other, virus or some other thing. In the last 20 years, how many such viruses we have seen, epidemics we have seen. We've seen bird flu, H1N1, we've seen, Nipah virus, we've seen Ebola. This just became a pandemic because of certain, factors. That's our carelessness as well. And so many social factors and communication factors and travel factors. That is what happened. So a little bit of carelessness on the part of the whole global community. But otherwise, we have to learn to live with it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you. I think there is a big learning and key learning from your just 5-minute, insight on the patient expectation versus patient experience during COVID and going forward in Omicron era as well. I think, again, as Dr. Ghadvi stressed, and now Madam Uma is also suggesting the same, as in the masking and COVID appropriate protocols. If we continue, then only we can able to save ourselves and react to that virus accordingly. So I think that is something major learning of this particular session. I'm moving to Dr. Rajesh.
Yes, madam.
Sir, what are your thoughts where, the hospital consumers, I mean, if we talk about anybody, I mean, any kind of hospital, be it government hospital or trust hospital, corporate hospital, private hospital, chain of corporate hospital, how the healthcare consumer will turn into the integrated healthcare system where hospital only do not provide the, indoor or OPD, wherein they have a lot of solutions, as Neeraj just mentioned about the home healthcare services, or they have a telehealth solutions, they have a pharmacy home delivery, they have some assistant to patient. What are your thoughts that how that going to be there? Because of course the healthcare industry is facing a lot of shortage of the manpower. When I say manpower, there are doctors and nurses, about the COVID situation. And now, a few of the nurses also have given up their job just due to the COVID and all that. We, from the provider point of view, we are aware about it. So barring those challenges, how the business will align and how the hospital will, continue providing many services?
Yeah, so one thing we are sure of that, like COVID is not going to go away from our life, technology is also not going to go away from our life. Okay, it is going to increase further. So what will happen is mostly there is a merit in shifting the burden to patient himself. For example, आप अपना BP खुद ही नाप लो. तो ECG खुद ही ले लो, फिर हार्ट रेट खुद ही देख लो. Okay, so all of these things will have this effect that the task burden shifts from healthcare provider to the healthcare seeker.
Sure.
So and technology will also help in that sense that now it will become more and more easy to take these readings and maintain a graph and those things. So one thing is, I think from the patient's perspective, they will have a lot of data, but they will get confused because of that data. Okay, so the doctor's role will change to more of educators, like how do you make sense of this data. पहले वो आके बोलता था मेरे सिर में दर्द हो रहा है ना, so now he will tell मेरे सिर में दर्द हो रहा है, मेरा ECG ऐसा है, मेरा BP ऐसा है, मेरा heart rate ऐसा है. He will have much more things to talk to the doctors. Okay,
so all vitals are taken there at own end, and then they come up with the whole history. Yeah,
ग्राफ भी बना के देगा आपको, फिर आप ही को इंटरप्रेट करना पड़ेगा.
So sir, आजकल तो आपके iWatch से ही निकल जाता है ECG. So if you have an app, so you can just have your ECG done, your blood pressure is measured.
Correct. So these things will change the way the seeker is seeing healthcare. Okay, so now many of these things were black boxes. When I go to hospital, I don't know. They will have some machine, उसका कुछ लगाएंगे और वो ECG निकलेगा. Now that machine is with me only.
Yeah.
Okay? And the ECG I can only take out. So these things will be very, I think they are a lot of game-changing things which are happening because of technology. And I can't predict how the healthcare delivery will happen because how the patient will take care of this data or how they will behave while they come to the hospital along with this data. I don't think there has been many studies on that. So there are from
It
the
is still
management
evolving.
perspective.
Yeah.
From the management perspective, there are being studies which we can talk about, but how much population, how much percentage of population in India will be having these sort of facilities? You can say 0.1, 0.01%. So it's still not widespread, but you can see in the horizon the sunrise is happening, and once the patient takes lot of burden on himself, then how will he see healthcare? That is I can't predict how it will happen. I see that one part which is post COVID technology bringing in. कोविड तो रहेगा, बट टेक्नोलॉजी और ज्यादा अच्छे से रहेगी आपके साथ, and that will always change the way people behave with each other. Okay, so for example, we say people on dining table don't talk to each other, they message each other. So these things will also happen. It's not the dining table manners which are changing, it will also change the way patient and doctor interact, healthcare and consumer interact, everything. So we will have to be aware of what are the changes and then adapt accordingly.
Fine. You actually bang it on, because the way you had given the example about patient taking care of their own health by using all the platform what they have on the smartphones and other equipment, and you just YouTube it and then you get to know how to do it. I mean, everything is available on YouTube. So doctor turning into educator, and they are more academician, wherein they have to tell patient that this is how it should be done, and half of the job done, but it is not well job done. So that is somewhere the doctor will have to pitch in. So yeah, of course, the role is getting diversified from the medical practitioner, from the healthcare administrator to the seeker. So very well taken all your views, sir. Thank you so very much. We have questions coming in from the viewers. So I'll request Kavita to please raise the question to the speaker. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Ms. Neha. So we have few questions from viewers and entrepreneurs. So the first question is that we have heard that huge oxygen crisis in the second phase of corona. Why oxygen generator not a part of hospitals similar to of power generators? The user wants to ask that why there was huge oxygen crisis in second phase of corona, why oxygen generators were not available in the quantity as of power generators.
Okay, I'll request Dr. Gharvi to elaborate on that, because a lot of this is your question, sir.
Oxygen generators to power generators, and like we can't have lines like similar to electric lines are there. So basically, this is a very localized industry. The oxygen manufacturing or oxygen production is a very localized industry, wherein most of it is used by the industries, and the purest of the pure, the remaining, that is taken for the medical purposes, and from there it is transported to the hospitals. Many hospitals have PSAs, which are oxygen plants which generate oxygen, and because of the high capital cost, many hospitals have not actually installed those plants. Plus there are some issues about the pressure also. There have been issues whether the ventilators can be run with the PSAs or not. Now we are getting better PSA plants. So many hospitals are opting for that. There are also liquid oxygen tanks which have been installed by the hospitals. So these are the three modes in which oxygen generation happens: through cylinders, through liquid oxygen tanks, and PSA plants. So it can't, like, you can't compare it with power generation. It is completely a different process. And the oxygen generation is not only for medical purpose, most of it is for industrial purposes. And transporting oxygen is a very critical thing. Like the major reason of the oxygen crisis during the second wave was that there were places where there was no local industry which had this oxygen generation capacity. So the government had to arrange vehicles, transport vehicles, to shift oxygen, liquid oxygen from one state to the other. And yeah, initially there were issues, but later on it was taken care of.
Yeah. Yeah. So I hope the question is well answered by sir.
Right. Truly said, Dr. Garvi. One more question. I think it's related again to oxygen. I think you will have to answer that again. Does excess oxygen intake has an adverse impact on patient's health?
So there is no excess intake. The body will take only that much
Required.
it is required. Like there is a capacity, lung has a capacity. So it won't take more than what is required. So there is nothing like an excess.
Intake.
Provision की store कर लो.
Okay.
Can't store
Thank
it.
you so much for putting lights on both the questions. Please continue, Ms. Neha.
Yes, so fine. So both the questions are addressed. Thank you so very much, sir, again for taking up those questions. We are just about to end this discussion. Before we end up, I request all the speakers just to say one line on this particular topic on the what we have today, the COVID and going on Omicron era and the future ahead 2022 and more than that. So next decade. So what are yours, sir? Let us start with Dr. Garvi. Sir, one line, please. One line message.
Don't be afraid, but be alert. That is what I am saying.
Thank you.
Continue wearing mask and maintaining physical distance. It's not going to go away.
Right. Over to Rajeshi.
Yeah, I think as Dr. Bharat Gadvi says, wear your mask, but do your work also, even if it is from home.
No more chuttis, no more leaves. It's going to be work from home or work from office, wherever you are. Yes, Dr. Ruma, what is your intake? Yeah, you have to unmute yourself first.
Sorry. So while I concur with both Bharat and Rajesh, I also want to add that we have to change our attitudes and we have to work more in cooperation with each other rather than isolate ourselves. Because we can see, it is good to be, we can isolate ourselves for medical reasons. So it's good to be self-preservationist, but don't isolate yourself in your professional field so much that when the time comes, we cannot rise and work together. See, what has brought us to control COVID is that despite all our differences, the entire global community of the healthcare workforce came together. The politicians came together, the social workers came together, and the population as such. So it is necessary to work together. It's necessary to unite, but also be self-preservationist and wear your mask. So that's what I have to say.
Well, thank you so much. At my end, I'll just sum up with a few thoughts which we have just discussed. One about the data collection, one about the COVID appropriate protocols we have to follow. I don't know for how many more years going ahead, and then bridging the gaps in using the technology and put together. Everyone will have, unlocking the values, because the COVID also has taught us a lot of values in the system, not only professionally, personally. We have all came together and actually valued the life of the human life. So I think let us unlock those values in our lifespan. And with that, I'll just hand over to Ms. Kavita. And once again, thank you so much for being here and requested. My request was considered by one call. So again, I extend my warm thank you to all the speakers. Over to Kavita.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our pleasure. We are glad to have all of you here. Thanks a lot, Ms. Neha Lal, Dr. Bharat Garvi, Dr. Uma Nambiar, Dr. Rajesh Chandwani. Thanks a lot for this healthy panel discussion. And we will